In 2059, as millions of people die every year due to the rise in the temperature, a group of anxious people, including scientist and presidential advisor Dr. Jonathan Chopin and his adult son Rowan Chopin, gather and wait to hear the president's strategy to combat the concerning climate change. The United States President Elizabeth Burdick, holds a press conference and details that she has decided to sign the Climate Intervention Treaty, CIT2, to expand the geoengineering moratorium and to endorse any act that can artificially manipulate the climate. Rowan is deeply disturbed by this decision, yells at his dad for advising the president to sign the treaty, and storms out. 6 months later, on Father's Day at 15:08:24 GMT, Dr. Jonathan and his third wife, Mariama Cruz, go on a boat ride to celebrate the special day after waiting for Rowan all day and being disappointed at his absence. Dr. Jonathan keeps calling his only son every chance he gets and starts worrying when he finds no response. Then, out of desperation, Dr. Jonathan calls his ex-colleague Martha Russell at Alpha Industries in London and asks her to track his son's phone and tell him his location. Meanwhile, at 16:15:10 GMT in Djibouti, Dr. Jonathan's ex-wife and Rowan's stepmother, CEO and founder of New Sky Initiatives, Geeta Mishra, and Rowan prepare for her upcoming presentation. At 17:29:41, Dr. Jonathan and Mariama continue their boat ride, and the worried father shares how concerned he is about Rowan's state of mind as he has been obsessing over climate change lately. Then Dr. Jonathan gets a call from Martha, who informs him that his son's in Djibouti. This information doesn't sit well with the protective father, who begs Martha to investigate and find out more. In Djibouti at 05:05:40 GMT, Geeta is presented to an admiring group of professionals by her advisor and colleague Hishram to present and celebrate the inaugural flight of the world's first unmanned, fully carbon-neutral cargo plane, which she has named the Rowan. Geeta steps forward to give a short speech as the attendees think about her humble beginnings as the daughter of a math teacher in Badlapur, India, and her transformation to a successful, innovative scientist on the brink of making history. At 07:07:13 GMT, Martha informs Dr. Jonathan that she has successfully tracked Geeta's whereabouts and sends him a holographic video of Geeta's presentation in Djibouti, which shows Rowan by her side. Dr. Jonathan is confused by his ex-wife's actions and wonders what her motives may be for wanting to fly a cargo plane that's supposed to be capable of unmanned flight. In Djibouti, Rowan helps Geeta set up and prepare for her flight as they discuss how to handle Jonathan's reaction when he finds out about their collaboration. Rowan leaves his stepmother's side to the control room after he tells her that at the time she releases the cargo, all the rest of the planes will join her in automatically doing so, just like they planned. At 09:02:42 GMT, the cargo planes take off while everyone watches in anticipation and awe. To Hiram's discomfort, Rowan changes all the passwords in the control room in the name of security. He is then more dismayed to hear Rowan guide Geeta to unfamiliar coordinates, which he later learns is Badlapur. However, Geeta plays down Hishram's concerns and tells him that she is heading to her hometown, hoping to inspire the new generation of scientists to aim higher. Meanwhile, back in London, Dr. Jonathan goes over Martha's phone call in his head and goes over the video from Djibouti over and over again, as the fact that Geeta is flying the cargo plane, which has the ability to fly automatically after filling it to capacity, just doesn't sit well with him, and in fact reminds him of Rowan's 5th grade science project. Dr. Jonathan watches the video of the science project, which discusses the volcanic eruptions of Mount Pinatubo from years prior. The video details that the ash particles that scattered as a result of the volcano were able to divert rays of the sun. At 10:57:10 GMT, Geeta flies the plane, surrounded by a few other unmanned cargo planes, and asks Rowan to help raise her altitude, which concerns Hiram, fearing the military would shoot them down, as they haven't filed this altitude on the flight plan. Despite the warning, Geeta and Rowan work together to fly even higher than the altitude allowed for commercial planes. Meanwhile, still suspicious of what's going on, Dr. Jonathan researches the net profits of all the known big chemical companies in the world. He then calls Martha to ask her if Alpha Industries has provided New Sky Initiatives with mass quantities of the controlled chemicals of calcium carbonate, hydrogen sulfide, and sulfur dioxide, which can all be used in an act of terrorism. In Djibouti, Hiram panickedly tells Gita that all the military units of different countries are sending them a warning for trespassing. Gita asks to speak to Rowan privately and warns him that since everyone would probably figure out their mission soon and call Dr. Jonathan, he should get away from there as soon as possible. At 12:09:16 GMT, Rowan walks out of the airstrip calmly saluting the unsuspecting staff. Then, Agent Sanchez from the FBI Counter-Terrorism Unit visits Dr. Jonathan at his house at his request. At 13:14:55 GMT, at the White House, President Elizabeth is contacted by a general from AFRICOM, who informs her about the unauthorized flight over international waters. She then learns that Gita and her son are behind the flight and that Dr. Jonathan is making unimaginable claims about his ex-wife's motives. In his house, Dr. Jonathan explains to Agent Sanchez that he and Gita had endorsed geoengineering to lower the planet's climate years prior. He adds that after further research, he, unlike his wife, has seen the unpredictability and risky nature of the science and has resorted to researching other possible solutions and requests to be taken to Washington, D.C. to speak to the president. Meanwhile, Gita sends a holographic message to the president, giving her an ultimatum to commit to geoengineering to save the planet, or she will release tons of calcium carbonate. Gita then asks the escaping Rowan if he's okay and to update her on his status, while unbeknownst to her, the military storms the control station in Djibouti, looking for him. Rowan finally makes it to his private control room and reports to his stepmother that he's okay. At 14:52:29 GMT, Dr. Jonathan convenes in a meeting with President Elizabeth, her advisors, and the military head. The doctor once again explains to everyone how dangerous geoengineering is, how the outcome is too unpredictable, and how once it's applied, the planet will have to live with the consequences for years to come, as it is difficult to reverse the effects. He adds that if Gita does go through with what she threatened, the released calcium carbonate will interfere with the rain patterns of the Earth, resulting in crop failures and drought. He also notes that the resulting social, economic, and resource imbalance will result in massive and uncontrollable societal migration. President Elizabeth's chief of staff interrupts this meeting to breathlessly announce that they have established live contact with Gita. Gita joins the meeting over video call and asks the president what she has decided about the ultimatum. The president tries to calmly talk to Gita and convince her to abandon her mission and come to the White House to discuss with the rest of the world leaders and find a solution to climate change instead of solely deciding the planet's future. The military advisors suggest that the president keep talking to Gita to distract her and give them time to come up with a possible military solution. As the president continues the conversation, Dr. Jonathan, who has been silently taking in the chaos in the room, interrupts and enters the discussion with Gita. Soon after, Gita and the doctor get into a heated argument over the effects of geoengineering, as everyone else tries to think of ways to bring an end to the madness. Dr. Jonathan argues that the temperature rise of the planet is not just about the sun's rays and has to do with a lot more with the daily activities of humans, while Gita frustratedly states that she can no longer watch as millions of people in her country and the rest of the world suffer due to wars caused by resource imbalance and famine. Then, everyone, especially Dr. Jonathan, was utterly shocked to hear Rowan's voice enter the call. The doctor desperately asks his son if he is on the flight with Gita, but gets no response. Instead, Rowan defends his stepmother when Dr. John accuses her of pulling his son into this insanity. The military interferes and disconnects the call, which frustrates Dr. Jonathan, who is even more infuriated when the military questions his allegiance until they are reminded that he had alerted the government of the situation and has come to the meeting of his own volition. Then, the Secret Service removes the doctor from the meeting and takes him to a different room to calm down. The rest of the advisors discuss how to proceed with the president, as the president surprises everyone by considering letting Gita go through her calcium carbonate experiment. The meeting is interrupted by an important phone call. Meanwhile, at 15:16:47 GMT, having figured out the location of Rowan's call, soldiers storm Rowan's personal control room but are disappointed to only find a hologram of him. Elsewhere, Rowan sits disguised among an unassuming group of civilians in an internet cafe and continues his conversation with Gita. Gita notices that she's surrounded by the Air Force and becomes frightened. Rowan then proposes to help her safely land so that she can resort resort to solving the matter in a meeting with the president. However, Gita refuses to and tells him to keep going even if they shoot her down. At 15:32 GMT, in the White House, President Elizabeth takes the important call and privately speaks to Alpha Industries CEO Nicholas Bilton. Meanwhile, Dr. Jonathan does some calculations and realizes that something doesn't add up with Gita's mission and asks to be taken back to see the president. Elsewhere, Gita notices the Air Force planes changing their track and leaving her, and excitedly informs Rowan of their feat. As Rowan proudly tells Gita that she has achieved her dreams, her cargo plane is hit and explodes at 16:03:44 GMT over Mumbai. As the president, along with her senior staff, tries to figure out who was responsible for taking Gita's cargo plane down, Dr. Jonathan informs everyone that his calculations show that the planes can't carry as much calcium carbonate as Gita claimed, and declares that there must still be a part of the mission they don't know about. Dr. Jonathan asks to speak to Gita and is shocked to learn of her fate. Then, Rowan calls the White House and speaks to his father, who desperately begs him to give himself up and return home safely. At 16:19:38 GMT, Rowan tells his father that it's too late and releases tons of calcium carbonate from thousands of Alpha delivery drones. Dr. Jonathan returns home from an exhausting and traumatic day, holds on to Mariama for comfort, and wonders what's next for the planet. And with that, the movie ends. We hope you enjoyed the video. Watch the next recaps on the screen, and don't forget to subscribe for more amazing recaps. See you in the next one.